Welcome to A Chef's Grimoire, Winter. Today we'll be working with the Hierophant. So I like to start with the Major Arcana page again. I like to see where we are in the Fool's journey. The Fool is over here, numbered 0. We have the Magician, which is the beginning of the journey. Magician, High Priestess, Empress, Emperor, and here we are, Hierophant. Let's see what the Hierophant has to say. So I believe that in past videos, I've just read the continuing journey of the Fool, and then we'll go into the symbolism on the page and in the card. The Fool leaves the Emperor with a lot to think about. There used to be a time when life was carefree, spontaneous, and an innocent curiosity with trust in the universe made exploring an elated feeling of limitless potential. Between the teachings of the Magician and the High Priestess, who conjure up the understanding of mind over matter, listening to one's intuition, and believing in the connection to the esoteric world, and the new, tangible teachings of the Empress and the Emperor, who are grounded, nurturing, and both bring a sense of security and structure. The Fool's head is in the esoteric ether, while their feet are stuck in the mud. It all seems too much to contemplate, and even the Fool knows that they are in a position where the higher learning in the form of an institution to find teachings and ethical lessons and a community with a sense of belonging is the next step in their journey. Seated in front of an arched stained glass window, between two columns, and with accolades kneeling in front of him, the Hierophant preaches to his audience. Understand the foundations of your beliefs, but also recognize when it might be time to evolve or adapt them. Embrace your journey, for every step you take is a lesson in itself. Balance your adventurous spirit with the teachings of those who have walked before you, and you will find a deeper meaning in your experiences. The Hierophant's words were exactly what the Fool needed to hear. The Hierophant gestures with the right hand of benediction, and with that, the Fool becomes a follower of doctrine and established spiritual teachings. I wanted to start with number 5. This is the number of the Hierophant card. Now, number 5 in numerology signifies change, freedom, and adventure. It's a number that seeks variety and new experiences. But when it comes to the Hierophant, could it be that the new knowledge we seek is within old traditions? There are 4 elements, as we know from when we did the Fool card, and also the Magician. But the 4 elements plus the Hierophant make 5. 5 is the middle, from 1 to 10, which is our numerology system. 5 is the bridge. So 1 to 4, 5 crosses over, and then 6 to 10. And in reading the tarot cards, you'll see that that is similar in the case of how the cards are presented. The Hierophant is also under the astrological sign of Taurus. And Taurus season is in the 5th month of the year. The word Hierophant is from Greek, and it's meaning one who shows sacred things. And, it's funny because a lot of people say, well, the Hierophant, it sounds like elephant. Yeah, don't disregard that. Elephants are very wise. They have a fantastic memory. They're tough. They are enormous, so they really make a statement. And they're set in their ways. Lot of similarities here. going back to the picture of the Hierophant, they have blue at their throat. It's a blue shroud that he wears underneath his robes, but it goes all the way up to his throat. Now, blue, as we know, is the color of the element of water. Water is a feminine aspect. It's also flows, and it has to deal with communication, in addition to yellow, which is air. That's communication as well. But the flowing of communication. The Hierophant's job is to be the gateway or the bridge between the spiritual world and the mundane world. So they are the bridge between, and they need to communicate all of the knowledge that they know. Also, by covering the neck of the Hierophant, it's almost like, you know, within any secular or institutionalized religion, there are secrets. And so you see these little, what look like eyes on either side of the Hierophant's throne. Those are actually circumpuncts or bullseyes. The glyph for Taurus is the bull. So the eyes are staring right at you, in addition to the Hierophant's eyes staring right at you. But behind those eyes, there are secrets. We also can see these little, what look like little devilish heads on either side of the structure that they're within. And these are what you would think would be masks, and masks hold secrets. So there's a mask to every situation, and it's hiding the true nature of things. So sometimes you'll see on various cards masks. Also, the accolades have their backs to you. So what are they hiding? Yes, they're focused on the Hierophant. Whenever there's a back toward you, or a person in the cards is either looking to the left or right or behind them, that usually means that there is something that they're hiding or something that they're reflecting on. So it's interesting. It's very interesting. Now, again, going back to the Hierophant being the bridge, in this particular card, which is the Rider-Waite Smith deck, I did a very poor rendition of these, but the emblems on the columns resemble fallopian tubes in the women's anatomy, and the fallopian tubes are what the child births through. So again, it's communicating, it's being a bridge, it's bringing life to knowledge and passing it on. The crown that the Hierophant wears, it's a Pretosia mitre. Pretosia means it's just jeweled and lavish rather than a simple mitre, which you'll see our Pope sometimes wears. It kind of looks like a shield on his head that's white. This one is 3-tiered. Again, Father, Son, Holy Ghost. And there's 3 what look like nails jutting out from the top of it. Now, nails are, nailing Jesus to the cross. Nails are representative of stable, holding something down. Nails are holding you in place, holding traditions. So they're anchoring traditions, especially for the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost. So those are interesting as well. In our continued journey story, we talk about the hand of benediction being raised. That's pictured here. So the Hierophant is gesturing in what is a hand of benediction, meaning that again, it's a bridge between heaven and earth, or a spiritual and material realms. So this is that indication of what we were talking about with him being a bridge. Just by raising his hand, he can bring in the powers of everything that he knows and pass it on. This cross that he holds, it's very different than the ankh that the emperor held. The ankh is meaning life. This is a three-tiered cross, which is representative of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. It's the three stages every person must pass in order to experience true spiritual fulfillment: instinct, consciousness, and knowledge. It also resembles a ladder, again, a gateway, climbing the ladder, stairway to heaven. Now the keys down here, they symbolize holding the keys to the spiritual world. They're crossed. One is gold and one is silver. The gold key is the key to heaven. The silver key is the key to hell. You'll see in several cards that are different from the Rider-Waite-Smith deck that these accolades sometimes are reaching for the keys. Why? Well, the keys hold knowledge, and the accolades, although they're enamored and very focused on what the Hierophant has to say, they too want that knowledge, and they're willing to steal to get it. Our angels here are holding the Hierophant sign. I felt that they were very fitting for the church-like and spiritual world that is within our mundane reality. We look to the church, we think of angels associated with the church or with this institution. So I love that these little girls that are angels are holding our Hierophant sign, also with a white dove. And doves are purity. Doves are also the first discovery of what is the new world, and they pass on the olive branch to those that are looking for the new world. So they're the messenger. He's the messenger. So very fitting. And I wanted to add a little bling because of the richness of the tradition. One other thing I wanted to mention is the stained glass window I made dark. I was starting to just do the color to be, the lead, which held the panes of glass together. But then I thought, you know what? Talking about secretive, talking about institutions, we're going to darken this and portray something that would be, this is an evening mass. So it's in the nighttime. So it's not during the day when things are very bright and you can see clearly. It's at night. So again, going back to the secretive, the masks, the nighttime masks, any brightly focused thoughts, any brightly focused teachings. We have the night here. The columns, this is the last bit of symbolism that we'll talk about. But the columns, remember that there were columns in the High Priestess card. Now the High Priestess and the Hierophant are actually paired. For the longest time, I thought it was the Magician and the High Priestess that were paired because they're both in the esoteric world or teach of the esoteric world. But it's actually the High Priestess and the Hierophant because it's a duality. You'll remember we spoke about that quite a bit in her card. Duality of she is esoteric, he is more grounded, more in the mundane, teaching of the spiritual world to the mundane followers. The two columns here are different than Boaz and Yachin, which were in the High Priestess card. Those were established strength, which meant you need that to cross through. These don't really have names, they're just structure. And he sits between them, again, being a bridge between two stone pillars. Okay, so now we've gone through everything. It was pretty elongated on this one, but there's a ton of symbolism that is easy to overlook. And I hope with all of this, you're getting a better understanding of what this card is about. But let's talk about how we're gonna feed the masses with the Hierophant. So if the Hierophant was cooking, I think that he would stick to tradition, and he would follow the French way of cooking. You know, whenever you think of very high-end meals or traditional meals or things that are rooted in tradition, many different cultures pulled from French cooking in order to create what we now know to be standard meals. Like, for instance, Caucasian cooking is a combination of French and African. So many different cultures pulled from the French way of cooking in order to create their own cuisines. We're going to go back to French cooking. And with the number 5, we're going to do the 5 mother sauces. There are 5, and we'll talk about them in just a minute. But the 5 mother sauces are basically the base to anything delicious. So with that, let's get cooking. This is our mise en place for our Espangnole sauce. We've got beef stock, butter, flour that's been leveled off. Here we've got parsley, salt, and a bay leaf, black peppercorns, tomato puree, and a mirepoix. Remember, carrots, onions, celery, you know how to do that. We're going to start by getting our pan hot. We're going to add our butter, and whenever I add butter, I try to stir until it's fully melted so it doesn't burn. Add your mirepoix and let that cook for, about 6-7 minutes, maybe 8 minutes, until the vegetables are soft. We're going to add our flour and give that a good stir. Now this we're going to cook for another 5-6 minutes. We want to take out that flour flavor. You'll see little tiny bubbles starting to form, and that's what you want. You're going to try to maintain that temperature all the way through the cook. Now, this is about 7 minutes later, and you can see that it's darkened. We're going to start to add our stock little by little. It's going to thicken as you do that. But continually stir and make sure that you get the edges of the pan just like that. Now we're going to add our tomato puree. And I like to go in and get a little bit of liquid in there just so that all the puree comes out of the measuring cup. Next, we're going to add the peppercorns, followed by our herbs and our salt. Now, we're looking to let this simmer for a good 40 minutes, but you don't want it boiling. You do want a high simmer. You could see every once in a while you see a bloop. The sauce cooked for 40 minutes. It's glossy, it's silky, it's still thin, but that's the way it should be. We're going to strain it now, but before we do that, we want to make sure it coats the back of a spoon, and we want to taste. Needs more salt. We're going to strain it through just a regular sieve into a glass measuring cup because it is still hot. And then we're going to take all those solids and kind of press them through the sieve so that any of the liquid can come out of the juices from the vegetable. You're left with this beautiful sauce ready to go. Here's our mise en place for bechamel. We've got milk, flour, salt, butter, and a whole nutmeg. Now, I like to buy them whole because I think they stay fresher longer when you freshly grate them. Get your pan hot and add your butter. And you'll see a pattern here with all 5 of the sauces. I'm going to stir the butter until it melts so that there's no patches that burn before I add the next thing. I'm going to add our flour. This is called the roux, and this is going to thicken the sauce. And again, get the sides of the pan. Make sure you're scraping all that flour into the butter. We're going to let that cook for about 2 to 3 minutes until it starts to bubble like that. And then we're going to add the milk very slowly. Let it thicken, add some more. Now we're going to let that kind of high simmer for a few minutes until it gets to be thick, just like that. At that point, we're going to add our nutmeg and we're going to add our salt. Give it all a stir. We're looking to coat the back of the spoon. This one's a thicker sauce than the Espangnole. And we're going to taste. Perfect. Now with the bechamel, we're going to make a souffle. Yes, we are. This is a Gruyere souffle. And I'm going to do 2 of them. You take your butter and you want to make sure you very well butter your pan because you don't want the souffle sticking so it doesn't rise. This is our mise en place. We've got the bechamel we just made, egg yolks, and Gruyere cheese. We're going to start the base by adding our bechamel, the egg yolks, and give it all a stir. Now we're going to add the cheese and fold that in. Now if you're wondering where the egg whites were, here they are. We're going to do what's called froth them first. So when you start to make your egg whites, it's going to be frothy. Then it's going to turn a solid white. From there, it's still going to be super thin, so you got to keep going. And then it's going to come to a soft peak stage. Just like, well, that's more hard peak. That's what we want. Once the soft peak stage is there, another few minutes, and you're in the hard peak stage, which is exactly what we want. I decided to add some chives just to give it a little more color and a little more flavor to our beautiful souffle. And now we're going to do what's called folding. We're going to fold in the egg whites. You take about 1/3 and you put it into the base, and you're going to fold it over. So you're taking what's at the bottom and bringing it to the top, trying very hard not to deflate our egg whites. Once that's incorporated, you're going to go in with the rest of the whites and do the same thing. Go from the bottom up to the top, turning the bowl every once in a while. Now that the whole souffle batter is finished, we're going to scoop it into our prepared pans. And you're going to scoop it to about 3/4 of the way full. Give them a tap so that air bubbles are released from the bottom, and into the oven they go. This is our mise en place for our sauce Tomat. I've got canned plum tomatoes because we are in winter and fresh tomatoes are just not nice. I have onion. I've got flour, garlic, tomato paste. Now the tomato paste I may or may not use, we'll see. I've got my herbs here. It's a bouquet garni, which is parsley, thyme, a little orange zest, and a bay leaf. I've got sea salt and sugar. We have coriander, fennel, basil, and saffron. To start this cook, we're going to get our pan hot. We're going to add olive oil. And to that, we're going to add our onions. We're going to cook them until they're transparent and soft. Next, we're going to add our flour. And I'm finding this flour is elective, but just like all the others, cook until the flour flavor goes away. I strained the tomatoes, and we're going to add them in. Next, we're going to add all those seasonings, along with the salt and the sugar. Follow that with the bouquet garni, the orange peel and the bay leaf, and finally, garlic. Oh, the smell of this is amazing. It released all its juices, but I'm still finding it's a hair dry. So I'm going to add half of that tomato paste, as well as a little tomato puree, just to give it a little more. Let it loosen a little bit. This is our mise en place for our Hollandaise. We've got some melted butter, lemon juice, water, and egg yolks. You want a vessel that holds the immersion blender. You want the head of the immersion blender to be perfectly suited for the bottom. You don't want a lot of air around it. And you're going to add your egg yolks, followed by the lemon juice and the water. And you're going to start the immersion process. Oh, a little salt as well. Once the immersion blender is running, you're going to add the butter slowly, very slowly. And keep it running. Keep that immersion blender running as you add the butter. And you'll notice that it'll start to thicken. And once all the butter's added, it should be nice and thick. For our mise en place for this last sauce, it is, I'm using seafood stock, butter, salt, and flour. We're going to put the butter into a hot pan, and you know the routine by now. You're going to stir until the butter's melted. We're going to add our flour to make our roux, and stir and let it cook for a good, 2-3 minutes to take out that raw flour flavor. Then you're going to start to add the stock little by little. Salt. And I am going to use that last pat of butter. I'm going to emulsify it into the sauce. So I have some salmon here. I'm just going to do a very simple preparation. A little olive oil, rub it on in. A good coating of salt, followed by pepper. And I'm going to put these in my air fryer that has been greased. And we're going to put it at 400 for 8 minutes. Now, the salmon is just a vehicle for the sauce. We're going to start with the sauce Veloute. Glorious. And I'm just going to add a few lemon wedges. Followed by some chives, just for color. Next, we're going to do the Hollandaise. You're going to put a couple spoonfuls of the sauce right over the salmon, followed by a sprinkle of chives. And last on our salmon, we're going to add the sauce Tomat. This gets a sprinkle of parsley. Now the souffle. And lastly, our poutine. Yes, poutine. That's our brown sauce, or our Espangnole sauce, over some fries with cheese. Yum. All right, here they are. Everything we made. We've got the Hollandaise salmon. We've got the Veloute salmon. We've got the souffle with the Bachamel. Poutine with the Espangnole. And the Tomat. Nothing to do now but taste. I'm going to start with the Hollandaise. And I'm not going to lie, it happens to the best of us. My Hollandaise broke. You might notice that from the pictures. The egg stayed on top of the salmon while the butter pooled around it. You know, it's not a terrible thing, but it's definitely a tower moment in the kitchen. I did everything I could to bring it back, but I couldn't. I added extra egg yolks, I warmed it up, I added water, I added more lemon juice. All of those things are preventives in case you can fix it, but it just never came together. And I know why. Because when I started to pour the butter, I poured it too fast. And it didn't emulsify and it didn't coagulate with the egg yolks being cooked in the hot butter. In a gradual way. But I want to tell you that, you know, if it happens to you, don't get discouraged. It happens, and it's still going to taste delicious. And I'll tell you right now that it tastes delicious because I'm going to taste it. Yeah, it's delicious. I mean, how can butter poured over something be not delicious? Plus the fact we added that lemon juice. The salmon is very delicious, just salt and pepper. You saw that. A very simple salmon preparation in my air fryer. And you know what? Look at that. That's the egg. It coagulated. It separated from the sauce, but I think it's nice. When we do the tower card, this is going to be one of the things we'll do. I bet you $1 it'll come out perfect then. But anyway, this is delicious. This is delicious as is. It's got tons of flavor. It's got that flavor that everybody loves, right? The Hollandaise sauce, you can't go wrong. Whether it's over asparagus or eggs, delicious. Okay. Next up, we're going to do the Veloute sauce. Now, the Veloute sauce is super simple. I mean, it's just stock and butter, really. A little flour to thicken. These mother sauces are prepared very streamlined because you want them to be able to be added to. Now, for instance, this Veloute sauce, I used a seafood stock because I was pouring it over salmon. You could use a chicken stock. You can use a beef stock, depending on your preparation and what you're going to use it for. The other thing about it is, this particular sauce, I had some lemon left from my Hollandaise, so I squeezed it into the sauce to give it a little more zhuzh. Let's taste. Oh yeah. It brings the seafood flavor of the salmon up a notch. It's creamy without having any dairy. And I love the lemon juice in it. It's a very delicate sauce. And like I said, you can make it more complex or keep it just simple. That's the beauty of a mother sauce. It's delicious, really. Veloute. Next, we're going to do the Tomat. So this is a lovely sauce. I mean, it has a lot of good ingredients in it. You got saffron, you got, all those special herbs and spices, the bouquet garni. Don't think of this as a marinara sauce. Think of it as a tomato sauce that's just really different. Now, let's taste. I paired it over salmon. I think this would go over any, chicken, lamb might be really nice. But let's try it with the salmon. Wow. That is intense. I don't know, I've never made this sauce in the summertime with fresh ripe tomatoes. I'm gonna do that this summer because I want to taste the difference. This is intense. The tomato flavor is so vibrant. I would pair this more with a chicken rather than the salmon. I think it overpowers the salmon a little bit, but I can taste just like the barest hint of the orange peel. I can taste the saffron and the tomato flavor because there wasn't so much liquid to dilute the flavor, is over the top intense. So good. Really, it's good. Really nice. Excellent. Okay, 2 more. Souffle. So I checked this souffle at about 15 minutes in to the baking, and it was rising beautifully, but it was darkening too much on the top, and it had like another 30 minutes in the oven. So I panicked, another tower moment. I opened the door, put some foil on top, just barely covering it just to make sure it didn't brown any further, and closed the door. That was my downfall, because if you've ever heard the stories of not stamping near the oven when there's a souffle in there because it'll deflate, yes, that's what happened. So my souffle deflated, but how I fixed it, I took the souffle, I took a tomato paste jar, a tomato paste can, and I went in the center and I took out the center, just like that. And then I took those 2 pieces and put them inside the souffle. Nobody would ever know. So easy fix, and it's still delicious. But to that testament, I'm gonna try it and let you know. So it's very light, which is the way a souffle should be. It's not dense and eggy, which is great. That means that we kept the loft in the whites when we folded it in. And well, let's see about the flavor. It's lovely. A lot of custardy flavor in the center. You could taste the Gruyere. It's a very simple souffle. It doesn't have a lot of complicated ingredients in it. But this, served with a light salad, amazing. And then, you know, you have your bechamel. You could, if you make a double batch, do a macaroni and cheese later. It all works out. Okay. All right. I saved the best for last, in my opinion. Poutine. Poutine. Yes, I went there. I had to. It's this dish is what this sauce was made for. I don't care. I mean, I don't know when poutine was created, but I'm a Jersey girl, so I grew up in New Jersey, and when we used to, go out and party when I was younger, and then we'd go to the diner afterwards and have cheese with fries with cheese and gravy. That's what this is. So, of course, the Jersey kind is not the same as the poutine kind, but nonetheless delicious, and all made with that same brown sauce. So here we go. Oh yeah. Yep. Reminds me of being 18 again. Excellent. Yes. So what else can this sauce be served with? Well, you can serve it with steak. It'd be amazing with steak. You could serve it, you can make those saucy meatballs, like Swedish meatballs. Just add some sour cream, add maybe a little Dijon. You have a lovely meal there. Stroganoff, anything that you think is a brown sauce. You could even serve this over your turkey at Thanksgiving time. Why not? I mean, maybe you use turkey broth instead of beef broth. Yeah. There's a bunch of ways. I mean, that's why they're called mother sauces. Again, they're the base of pretty much everything that we do in fancy or conventional cooking. And, you know, the way I made them today, there's a million ways you can make them. So I used the French technique because I wanted to stay true to the Hierophant and make sure that everything is in line with tradition. Anyway, it comes down to flavor, and all 5 of these sauces are traditional, flavorful, so useful, and can be, as I said, zhuzhed up to be a little more flavorful in whatever way, in any direction you want to go, or kept very simple. So let's talk about the Hierophant card. When we get the card in a reading, as always, depending on what flanks that card, is how you're going to interpret it. But pulling the Hierophant on its own, you're looking at traditions. You're looking at thinking about going back to traditions in order to create something new. Using the base as your jumping point, as your structure to build upon. I often think of the movie Fiddler on the Roof. If you've ever seen it, most people have at this point, but there is obviously a song in that movie called Traditions, and it speaks super loud. So whenever this card is pulled, I always hear that song in my head, and it's it's a good reminder of everything that the card is about. So the foundations we can build upon are terrific in troubling times. We could be pulled in either direction. We could be, if you're opening a restaurant, let's just go back to food. If you're opening a restaurant and you're looking for menu ideas, and you really want to make the restaurant new and exciting and something that nobody's ever seen before, well, instead of recreating the wheel, go back to old traditions of cooking, maybe mythologies of cooking, and bring those into the light. Bring those forward and zhuzh them like we did the sauce. Make them tweaked, bring them so that the idea here is that you don't want to rock any boats. You want to keep things very streamlined. People don't like change. So to just bring something brand new that's never been seen before into reality, it's going to take a lot of time, maybe even years, to get it going. So if you start with something old and build upon that to make something new, people can accept it more readily. People can bring it into their lives without feeling afraid, brought out of their elements in order to try something. So, yeah, it's all about traditions. The Hierophant. Now, one thing to consider, of course, is the mask element that we talked about. So, if you are creating something that you want to bring to the world in a new way, and you're basing it off of traditions, always double check. Is it for the higher good? See you next week.